Well, thank you, General Berger, and thank you for your service, for your opening statement. Let's start with you, Admiral Moran. Senator Reid and I have talked about this. We're going to have 6-minute rounds as opposed to the normal 5-minute rounds. There are a lot of things that we want to discuss, but I'm concerned about one thing more than the rest that affect you, Admiral Moran, and that is this whole leadership concept. You and I talked about it in my office. We have looked at this for a long period of time. I can remember when we did the NDAA back in 2017. We addressed this. In fact, just reading one of the requirements says, you don't deliver a covered vessel until the Navy determines that the vessel is assembled and complete. That just hasn't been happening. It's just not your fault. I mean, you weren't in on that deal, but resolving the problem is something we're going to ask you to be addressing. The last 8 combatant lead ships cost a total of $8 billion more than the initial budget. 5 were delivered at least 2 years late with dozens of deficiencies. The example that I like to use, because I was down there and I have seen it, the Ford class was delivered. It was supposed to be delivered in 2015. It was finally delivered in 2017 at a cost of an additional $2.5 billion over the budget, and the weapons elevators still don't work. There's also other problems with it, but those are the things that, obviously, unless you deliver the ordinances, you're not going to be able to do anything with that. So what I'd like to have you just briefly, does anything come to your mind right now as to a change that could take place that could change our lead system concept?
Senator, thanks for the question. Several things come to mind immediately, and one is, in order to be effective at building new programs, new capabilities, is we've got to set the requirements early, and we've got to hold to those requirements and only make adjustments when absolutely necessary. We've got to make sure that we don't add risk to a program with layers of new capabilities, new technology that haven't been proven or prototyped yet. And I think if we get those right, it will reduce what you describe at the front end.
Yeah, see, I think you brought out something significant here, because it's not all the fault of a contractor out there. We changed the rules, changed the criteria, and it's just that this system hasn't been working. So I think you're right on target on an approach, and we'll be following your progress as it takes place. General Berger, we've gone through a period. Well, first of all, let me compliment you. I had a team over there in the South China Sea. We started off in Hawaii, and I'm not the only one at this table up here that doesn't like PowerPoints. And what you did instead of a PowerPoint was something brand new. You had maps in front of you, and you kind of walked us through. And that was so. You teach somebody else how to do that too, will you? We know what happened during the last administration. The priorities were not on. We had our brigade combat teams. Only about 30% of them could be deployed. Same thing with our Army aviation brigades. I think that was 35%. Our F-18s that we used there in the Marines, we only had 40% of those that could actually be used in combat at that time. And we saw this taking place. The general public was not aware of this, but we were at this table aware of it. Now we have, they were down to 40% on the F-18s. I'd like to, and I think the Secretary of Defense has talked about 80% as an expectation. Where are we now? We've done some improvements in the last 2 years. Where are we on that?
Senator, the 80% goal set by the Secretary of Defense was for all the services, and we've all been working hard to get there. I think first, I'll say up front, we would not be where we are right now in terms of readiness in TAC Air or anywhere else without the support of Congress and the oversight that you provided to make sure we were spending it on readiness. And it's happened. We're not where we need to be yet, but we're on the right path.
Yeah, give me a percentage.
On the F-18s and the F-35s together for the Marine Corps, the goal is 80%. Last week, F-18s hit 80%. F-35s hit about 74%. So I think both the Navy and the Marine Corps are paying close attention to it. there's things out of our control that we can't, we don't have a crystal ball, but I think the path that we're on should make it doable later this year to reach 80%.
Okay, well, that's a better answer than I would anticipate in this short period of time, but we also know that there's movement within that, so it's going to go up and down and not maintain a percentage, and I understand that. A lot of systems right now, the Air Force is going through replacing the KC-135 with the KC-46, and after many, many years, the CH-53 Echoes came around, in, I think it's 1981, and now we're looking at dramatic improvements. And although the cost is come in anticipated to be pretty high, would you comment on this moving to the CH-53 Kilo model, and why?
Sir, just a couple quick thoughts there to answer the question. The 53K. First of all, the program has been restructured based on the testing that was done over the past 18 months by the Assistant Secretary of the Navy, Gertz, and the vendor, Lockheed Martin. So that has been restructured, the program, and thanks to this committee and Congress for authorizing a reprogramming of funds to make sure that the testing could continue. I'm confident that that aircraft will meet our requirements, and the requirements remain valid. It will be the heaviest lift helicopter we own in the U.S. military. It has greater range, greater speed, greater reliability than the 53 Echo, which you mentioned is approaching 30 years right now. I'm confident that the oversight means are in place, and that both Secretary Gertz and the Marine Corps leaders are watching it closely. But that's an aircraft that can do what no other aircraft can. We need it.
Yeah, and we know, we hear the costs on this, but initially we understand that costs are going to be higher. And I am concerned about that when you just look at it and you say $100 million for a helicopter, when right now we're at about $80 million for a strike vehicle. So we want to follow that real closely, which we will be doing. Thank you very much, Senator Reed.